Part 1. The night I was turned away. I still remember the way the lights looked that evening. The hospital stood glowing against the dark sky, every window lit like a candle. Cars lined the entrance, black sedans, polished SUVs, even a few limousines. Men in tuxedos laughed under the awning while women in elegant gowns stepped carefully over the red carpet. And I stood across the street holding a small, neatly wrapped box. Inside it was my late wife Eleanor's brooch. She had wanted my son Daniel to have it on the night of the hospital gala, the same hospital where she'd spent her final months. She used to say, "One day Daniel will understand why this place matters to us." I thought tonight would be that day. I straightened my old navy blazer. It wasn't expensive, but it was pressed perfectly. My shoes were polished. My hair combed back. I looked decent, just not rich. As I approached the entrance, I noticed the way people glanced at me, not openly rude. Just quick looks, the kind that measure a man in half a second. The security guard stepped forward. "Invitation, sir." I smiled politely. "I'm here for Dr. Daniel Carter. I'm his father." He didn't smile back. "Name?" "William Carter." He checked the tablet in his hand. Scrolled. Paused. Scrolled again. Then his expression changed. Not angry, not confused. Dismissive. "I'm sorry, sir. You're not on the guest list." For a moment I thought he was joking. "I think there's a mistake," I said calmly. "My son is one of the keynote speakers tonight." He shook his head. "No invitation, no entry." I leaned slightly closer. "Please just call him. He'll confirm." The guard sighed, already annoyed. "Sir, everyone says that." Behind me, a couple laughed as they walked past. The valet opened a car door for them instantly. No one asked their names. No one checked a list. The woman glanced at me. The kind of look people give someone standing in the wrong place. I felt something tighten in my chest. "I'm not everyone," I said quietly. The guard stepped to block the door. "I need you to move aside, sir. You're holding up guests." Holding up guests. My son was inside, giving a speech about compassion and patient care, and I was being treated like a stranger outside the building my wife had, loved more than our own home. I pulled out my phone. My first instinct was to call Daniel, but my thumb hovered over his name and stopped, because I suddenly remembered something Eleanor told me 2 weeks before she died. If Daniel ever forgets where he came from, don't argue with him. Just remind the world who you are. I lowered the phone. "All right," I said calmly to the guard. "I won't make a scene." He relaxed immediately, already turning to greet the next arriving guest. I stepped away from the entrance and sat on a bench near the fountain. For a minute, I simply watched people walk inside. Donors, doctors, investors, reporters. No one recognized me. No one even wondered why an old man sat outside the gala carrying a gift box. I opened my contacts and scrolled past my son's number. Instead, I tapped a different one, a number I hadn't used in nearly 3 years. The phone rang once, twice. Then a familiar voice answered instantly. "Mr. Carter? It's been a long time. Is everything all right?" I looked back at the gala entrance. "No," I said calmly. "I'm standing outside the hospital tonight, and apparently I'm not on the guest list." There was a pause. Then the man's tone changed completely. "Stay right where you are." I ended the call and looked at the doors again. For the first time that night, I smiled, because in a few minutes, everyone inside, including my son, was going to learn something they had forgotten, and the gala was about to stop. In part 2, the hospital director suddenly rushes outside, and the security guard realizes who he just turned away. Part 2, the call that stopped the music. I didn't move from the bench. The night air was cool, and the fountain beside me hummed softly. But my hands were steady. I wasn't angry anymore, not even hurt, just certain. Inside the ballroom, music began to play, a string quartet, elegant and soft. Through the glass doors I could see people applauding. A host was probably introducing my son, Dr. Daniel Carter, Chief of Surgical Innovation, keynote speaker, the same boy who once cried because he couldn't afford a school field trip, and I had worked 2 extra night shifts to pay for it. I looked down at the small gift box in my hands and gently ran my thumb across its edge. "Your mother would have loved tonight," I whispered. Then suddenly, the main doors opened. Not casually, urgently. A man in a dark suit stepped outside quickly, scanning the area like he was searching for someone important. 2 more people followed, a woman in a formal dress and another staff member holding a clipboard. The security guard straightened immediately. "Mr. Whitaker, is something wrong?" The man ignored him. His eyes landed on me sitting quietly by the fountain, and his entire posture changed. He walked directly toward me, not slowly, not politely, but quickly, almost nervously. When he reached me, he stopped. "Mr. Carter." I stood. "Yes." The hospital director, the director, shook my hand with both of his. "I am so sorry," he said immediately. The security guard froze. "I just got your call. If I had known you were coming." I shook my head gently. "It's all right. Apparently, I wasn't invited." The director looked back toward the guard, his expression turning sharp. "You turned him away." The guard swallowed. "He said he was a guest." The director cut him off. "This man," he said firmly, pointing toward me, "is the primary founding donor of this hospital's research wing." The clipboard in the woman's hand nearly slipped. The guard went pale. I could almost hear the moment the realization hit him. The building, the Gala, the entire cardiac research center inside, existed because of Eleanor's endowment, and because I honored her final wish. The director lowered his voice to me. "Sir, the Carter Memorial Research Wing bears your wife's name. We have a plaque inside. Dr. Carter speaks about it in his interviews. We assumed you'd be seated in the front row." I smiled slightly. "My son never told anyone who funded it, did he?" The director hesitated. "No." I nodded slowly. "That sounds like Daniel." Inside, the applause suddenly grew louder, thunderous. The director glanced back toward the ballroom. "Your son is about to begin his speech." I looked toward the doors. "Good," I said calmly. "Then we shouldn't keep everyone waiting." The director turned to the security guard. "Open the doors." The guard moved instantly this time. As the doors parted, warm golden light spilled onto the steps. Music stopped. Voices echoed. Hundreds of guests filled the ballroom. And at the podium stood my son, confident, proud, unaware. He was just beginning his speech. This hospital represents compassion, sacrifice, and family. Then the director stepped inside beside me. Every head slowly turned. Daniel's voice faded mid-sentence. His eyes landed on me. The color drained from his face. The room went silent. I walked forward holding the small gift box, not angry, not dramatic, just a father, finally standing where he belonged. In part 3, the audience learns the truth about the Carter wing, and Daniel realizes why his father came tonight. Part 3, the name on the wall. You could hear the silence. Hundreds of people, donors, surgeons, board members, media, all staring as I walked slowly across the marble floor toward the stage. Daniel didn't move. For the first time in his life, my son didn't have words. His wife, Melissa, sitting at the VIP table, looked confused at first, then uncomfortable, and then something worse. Worried. The director stepped beside the podium microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said gently, before Dr. Carter continues, "I believe we've just welcomed a very special guest." Daniel whispered into the mic, voice tight, "Dad, what are you doing here?" I stopped a few feet from the stage. "I came to hear your speech," I answered calmly. "The invitation must have gotten lost." A few people chuckled softly, thinking it was a joke. Daniel didn't. The director looked at him, then at the audience. "I would like to introduce Mr. Harold Carter." A polite applause began, small at first. Then the director continued. "The husband of Eleanor Carter, whose endowment funded the Carter Memorial Research Wing." The room froze. The applause stopped mid-clap. You could actually see people turning in their seats, looking toward the glass hallway that led to the research wing, the wing Daniel had proudly mentioned in every interview for years. Melissa's face went completely white. Daniel blinked. "No," he said quietly into the microphone. The director wasn't finished. "Tonight's gala," he continued, "is held annually to honor her legacy and the man who fulfilled her final wish." He stepped aside and gestured toward me. Daniel slowly lowered the microphone. "Dad, you funded the wing." I looked at him, not with anger, but with something heavier. 12 years ago," I said, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "Your mother asked me to do one thing with the insurance money after she passed." I paused. She said, "Help other families keep their loved ones a little longer than I got to stay." No one moved. I didn't want a building named after me. I didn't even want recognition. I just wanted to keep my promise to her. Daniel's hands trembled on the podium. But the interviews, the articles, they all said a private anonymous donor. "Yes," I said gently, "because that's how I wanted it." Melissa suddenly stood from her chair. Her voice was sharp. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" I finally looked at her. "Because," I answered quietly, "you never asked about your husband's mother, only about her house, her jewelry, and her inheritance." A murmur spread across the room. Daniel closed his eyes. The weight of 12 silent years settled onto his shoulders all at once. I walked forward and placed the small gift box onto the podium beside him. "What's this?" He whispered. "Your mother's watch," I said softly. "I kept it for you. I thought tonight was the right night." His hand shook as he opened the box. Inside rested Eleanor's old silver wristwatch, simple, worn, priceless to him. He broke, right there on stage. Tears fell as he picked it up. I thought you never cared about any of this, he whispered. I smiled sadly. I didn't care about recognition, I said. I cared about you. The room was completely silent now, not awkward silence, but emotional. Then the director spoke gently. Dr. Carter, I think your speech just wrote itself. Daniel wiped his eyes and slowly lifted the microphone again. But this time his voice wasn't confident. It was human. I've given hundreds of speeches, he said, voice breaking. But tonight I learned I didn't understand sacrifice. Until now. He looked directly at me. My father is the reason this hospital exists. The entire ballroom rose to their feet. A standing ovation. But I wasn't looking at the crowd. I was looking at my son, who, for the first time in years, looked at me not as an obligation, but as his father again. In part 4, after the gala, Daniel learns why his father was really turned away, and someone will have to answer for it. Part 4, what really happened at the door. The applause lasted nearly a minute. I don't even remember hearing it. All I saw was Daniel stepping down from the stage, not as the famous surgeon everyone admired, but as a son walking toward his father. He stopped a few feet in front of me. For a moment he just stared, like he was seeing me for the first time in years. Then quietly he said, "Dad, why didn't you call me? Why did you come alone?" I gave a small smile. I did call you. 3 times this week. His face tightened. I didn't see anything. I left a voicemail. I continued gently. I told you I received a letter about tonight's gala. I thought maybe you wanted me there. Daniel slowly turned his head toward Melissa. She avoided his eyes. I never saw any letter, he said carefully. I did, I replied. From my coat pocket, I pulled out the slightly wrinkled envelope, the same one I had carried since yesterday. Daniel took it and examined the front. His name was clearly written, but underneath, in smaller writing, was something else. Guest authorization required. His brow furrowed. He opened it. Inside was the official hospital invitation, and attached to it, a printed guest list confirmation email. Daniel's expression changed immediately. Melissa. He whispered. She stood rigid beside the table. What? She said quickly. Daniel turned the page around and pointed. This RSVP. It says declined. The director leaned closer. Declined. That can't be right. We confirmed the donor family personally. Daniel looked at the email signature. It wasn't mine. It was sent from his home account. The room began to murmur again. I spoke softly. I thought maybe it was a mistake, until security told me I wasn't welcome. Daniel's jaw tightened. You spoke to security? I nodded. The guard said the doctor's wife personally requested I not be admitted unless approved by you. Melissa's face lost color. That's not what I meant. Daniel's voice became sharp. You told them to keep my father out. People nearby were now openly listening. Melissa lowered her voice. I didn't want a scene tonight. You were receiving recognition. And you said your father didn't like events like this. I shook my head gently. I never said that. Daniel stared at her. Then why? She hesitated. Finally, she whispered, I didn't want the donors asking questions about the house, or the inheritance, or why you never mentioned him. The truth hung heavy in the air. The director stepped back slowly. You intentionally blocked the founders. Family member from the gala honoring his wife. No one spoke. Daniel closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were no longer hurt. They were disappointed. You weren't protecting me, he said quietly. You were protecting an image. Melissa tried to grab his arm. Daniel, I was thinking about your career. My career exists because of him, he replied. He handed the invitation back to me. I spent years believing you didn't care, Dad, but you were standing outside a building built by your promise, while I was inside giving speeches. I placed a hand on his shoulder. I wasn't angry, I said. I was just waiting for the day you'd see me, not as a burden, but as your father. Daniel looked at the watch in his hand again. His voice softened. I almost lost that chance tonight. Then he turned to the director. Please make a note, he said calmly. My father will never need an invitation to any hospital event again. The director nodded immediately. Of course. Daniel then faced the security manager, who had quietly approached after hearing everything. The gentleman you stopped at the door. Daniel said, he is the hospital's founding donor family. Treat him accordingly. The guard straightened instantly. Yes, sir. I tried not to smile. Not because of authority. Because my son finally stood beside me. Not in front of me. As the crowd slowly returned to dinner and music resumed, Daniel pulled a chair next to mine instead of returning to the VIP table. Stay with me tonight, he said. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like an outsider in my own family. In part 5, after the gala, Daniel visits his childhood home and discovers the one sacrifice his father made that he never knew about. Part 5, the house I never told him about. The gala ended late. Guests shook Daniel's hand. Reporters asked for photos, and donors gathered around him, but this time he didn't let go of my side. Every introduction started the same way. This is my father. Not was. Not used to be. Not forgotten. Father. When the last car left and the lights inside the ballroom dimmed, Daniel turned to me. Dad, will you come with me somewhere? Of course, I said. We drove across town, away from the hospital district, past the restaurants and bright streets, into the older neighborhood, where houses sat closer together, and the sidewalks were cracked from tree roots. Then he slowed the car. I knew where we were before he stopped. Our old house. The small blue one with the narrow porch and the crooked mailbox. The house where Daniel grew up. Where Eleanor taught him to ride a bicycle in the driveway. Where he studied for his first biology exam at the kitchen table. Daniel stared at it in silence. You kept it. He whispered. I didn't answer immediately. He looked at me. I thought you sold it after Mom died. I told you I did, I said quietly. Daniel frowned. Why would you lie about that? I looked at the house, at the bedroom window that used to glow, late at night while he studied for medical school entrance exams. Because, I said gently, you wouldn't have let me. He didn't understand yet. So I told him, your medical school tuition wasn't covered by scholarships, I explained. Not all of it. The loan interest was too high, and you were already working 2 jobs. His eyes widened slowly. No. I nodded. I refinanced this house 3 times, then finally mortgaged it completely. The hospital donation your mother wanted came from her insurance. Your education came from this home. Daniel stepped out of the car. He walked slowly to the porch like he was afraid it might disappear. You lost the house. Because of me. I followed him. I didn't lose anything, I said. I invested in my son. His voice shook. You lived in that small apartment all those years. Because you gave me this. He suddenly sat down on the porch steps, overwhelmed. I thought you just wanted to be alone after Mom died. I sat beside him. I wanted you to succeed, I said. You were her dream, Daniel. Every late shift I worked, every repair job, every sacrifice wasn't a burden. I paused. It was a privilege. He covered his face with his hands. I spent years believing you didn't care about my life, and you were building it. We sat there quietly under the streetlight for a long time. Finally, he spoke again. I don't want the awards, the titles, or the interviews if they cost me my father, he said softly. I smiled. They didn't cost you me, I replied. You just needed time to find me again. He looked at the house one more time. I'm buying it back, he said firmly. I shook my head. No. He looked confused. Why not? Because, I said gently, home isn't a building. It's a relationship. And tonight, I got my home back. For the first time since he was a child, Daniel hugged me tightly. Not quickly, not politely, but like a son who finally understood. And under that quiet streetlight, 12 silent years between us finally disappeared. Final part 6. The next morning, Daniel makes a decision at the hospital that surprises everyone and honors his mother's legacy forever. Part 6. The promise he finally understood. Final. The next morning I woke up early, the way I always had. Old habits don't leave easily. I made coffee, sat by the apartment window, and watched the sunrise paint the city in soft orange light. For years, mornings were the quietest part of my day. The only time I didn't feel the emptiness. Eleanor left behind. But that morning felt different. Around 8 a.m., my phone rang. Dad, Daniel said, his voice steady but emotional. Can you come to the hospital? There's something I want you to see. I arrived half an hour later. This time, no one stopped me at the entrance. The same security guard who had turned me away the night before stood straight when he saw me. Good morning, Mr. Carter, he said respectfully, opening the door himself. I smiled. Good morning. Inside, Daniel was waiting near the main lobby. But he wasn't alone. Doctors, nurses, administrators, even the hospital director stood nearby. A small crowd had gathered near the hallway leading to the research wing. What's going on? I asked. Daniel didn't answer immediately. He simply guided me forward. We stopped in front of the large wall where donors' names were displayed. At the center hung the plaque for the Eleanor Carter Memorial Research Wing, the same plaque. I had walked past quietly for years without anyone knowing who I was. But something had changed. Below Eleanor's name, a new plate had been installed overnight. Daniel looked at me. I spent half my life telling people this. Hospital was built on compassion, he said softly, but I never told them whose compassion. He gently pulled a cloth cover away from the plaque. Under Eleanor's name now read, founded through the devotion and sacrifice of William Carter, who kept a promise. My hands trembled. Daniel, you didn't have to. I did, he interrupted gently. I hid you from the world because I didn't understand what you gave me. I won't make that mistake again. The director stepped forward. Mr. Carter, he said warmly, Dr. Carter has also created a new scholarship for medical students who can't afford tuition. It will cover full education costs every year. Daniel looked at me. We are naming it after Mom. And you. I couldn't speak. For years I believed my role in his life had ended when he became successful. But standing there, surrounded by the people he now led, I realized something important. A parent's work never ends. It just changes. Daniel placed Eleanor's watch gently back into my hand. I think you should keep this, he said quietly. You carried her promise longer than I did. I closed my fingers around it. I didn't carry it alone, I replied. I carried it for you. He hugged me again, not in front of cameras, not for recognition, but simply because he wanted to. And for the first time since my wife passed away, I didn't feel like I was living in memories anymore. I was living in family. As we stood there, students walked past the plaque, reading the names, not knowing the whole story, but feeling its meaning. Eleanor once told me, love isn't proven when life is easy. It's proven in what you quietly give. I had given what I could, and now my son finally understood. The end.